cross the Jordan. They had to cross that body, and it says that God totally, again, stopped the water, separated it, and they went through on dry land. It says a third time, and you wouldn't know this, but it's in the Apocrypha, and it's a great story with Esdras. When the tribes, the dispersed tribes, there's a whole river, and I'm going to really actually get into more detail, unlock this, where they crossed this river that flowed, a fast-flowing river that was keeping them from migrating further up to into Western Europe and up into the North, the islands of the sea. Okay, so this is a very interesting, the third one, I will unpack that time. It's very documented, okay? The third time that and the third time I want to say this is so interesting, the Exodus in the Old Testament, the crossing the Jordan, most people understand, is a New Testament understanding coming into the promised land. And then you have the third one where they cross this water, which is into a really amazing understanding with the house of Israel. This really gets into unwrapping the apocryphal understanding, the apocryphal books. It's time for all these three waters to flow into one river, okay, one big stream. Now that was, most people aren't going to know what I'm talking about, but whatever. These palm trees, the sons of Noah, the tables of nations, okay? So why a palm tree, or a date palm, or a fig tree? They're kind of all of the same. There's 250 species of palm trees. So anyways, the palm tree, like I said, in the temple, you had these two cherubim, and then you had a palm tree in the middle, okay? And the trees, why a palm tree? Now this is what I want to go into, because this is where it gets a little dicey. And this is where it gets into some of the real, both sides, like I said, have their esoteric understanding. And what is it about the pomegranate? You know, this I have to say. Now let me just totally digress on a note. Let me talk about the pomegranate, okay? Now we're back to that. Solomon, just a couple things out of Hebraic understanding. Solomon, they say, designed his crown as the crown of a pomegranate. Okay, and this is the beginning where we get, especially the European, those who track the house of Israel. This is a lot of the reasons why these typologies, these, if I can use the word ensign, I think, keep going forward, and we find them in different cultures because they all had their same origination and the same cultural bath, so to speak. Pomegranate is a symbol. This is a really, I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. I think the rabbis just did this one, but pomegranate, it's a symbol of righteousness because they say it has 613 seeds in it, which goes along and represents the 613 commands or laws that God gave Moses in the Torah. It's just sort of a, I don't know. They can have that one, whatever. Traditionally, and here's again, traditionally the Jews eat a pomegranate on Rosh Hashanah. So I mean, this is deep, this is really in their traditions, in their understandings. Now, on the fall feast of Rosh Hashanah, which is a very interesting feast, which is the hidden feast, why it would do it on that one. But now, these pillars, okay, that Solomon built at the entrance of the temple. If you go online, they have names, Boaz and Joachim. I don't know how to, Joachim, that's how I'll say it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct at all. And there's a lot you can say about these pillars, but I will say something about them. According to one site I went to, and they're within the ballpark of how large they were, if you look cubits, it's in cubits, and we can't 100% say what a cubit is, but you can ballpark it. That would make the stem, as it's called, the pillar part, 30 feet. So that's pretty big. The capital would be 8 feet. So you're talking 38 feet height on these things. And their circumference was 8 feet also. So all the way around, if you measured it, would be 8 feet. So it's a pretty large piece of structure. The top of the columns was decorated with, like I said, a lily crown, which we've already established is in the shape of the pomegranate. It's a budded crown. It's exactly, its shape is meant to represent a budded crown with a meshwork and pomegranates, okay? And it's all, that's all what's decorating on the top. Now, these two pillars, you have to go between them to get into the temple. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. All right. the pomegranate is also very often associated with the tree of life, okay? It is considered one of the 7 species of the land of Israel. The wheat, and this is another whole, oh, you just got to unpack this stuff. The wheat and the barley, which were harvested in the spring harvest, oh gosh, the spring feast, Pentecost, I mean, this was the first, okay, I can't even go there. Vines and fig trees, we're waiting right now. The last 3 feasts, the fall feast, will harvest the fruit of the vine and the fig trees, okay? And the pomegranate, the olive oil, and the honey, okay? These are all highly, you know, yeah, I'm not going to deny that you grow wheat and barley. And see, this is what's so interesting. Oh my gosh, the whole vegetable world is made, we're so interconnected on so many levels. See, I believe this thing fits. In science will prove, true science, that everything fits typologically across the board, genetically, subatomically, genetically, physically in the world of matter that we are here, and spiritually. And then in the high heavens, it's all back to bliss. Praise the Lord. Okay, so those different levels, I believe the truths, they fit. You can't break the typology going from one level to another level. Okay, so that's why, to me, how you can trust true revelation. So when you're talking about the crown, a budded crown, it fits. The typology fits in the physical world. I mean, I didn't make a pomegranate, you didn't make a pomegranate. Okay, so we got nothing to do with it. Nobody's photoshopping that thing, okay? So it fits in that world, it fits symbolically and spiritually and everything else. So the pomegranates, now, what it is, and this you can go online, there's one of the most fascinating little things that you should do because it's really interesting, is to go online and there's a whole thing you can do about foods, how certain foods look like they're a body counterpart, okay? Now I'm going to start doing this too, like walnuts. Walnuts look like a brain, the cerebral, the two hemispheres of the brain, okay? And they say if you eat walnuts, walnuts are good for brain food. So I'm going to start having a little bag full of walnuts every day because I don't know about anybody else. My brain's getting a little, okay? Sliced carrots, do this. Slice a carrot. Sliced carrots look like the eyeball. And everybody knows you eat carrots for your eyesight, right? Sweet potatoes look like a pancreas. And and they say that it's a great food. It reduces the risk of pancreatic cancer. I'm not making this stuff up. Go Google it. You figure it out. Kidney beans. Little kidney beans are in the shape of a kidney, of the human kidney, and it keeps blood pressure low and your sugar steady. Highly important function, metabolic function. Rhubarb. Rhubarb and celery look like bones, okay? And both of them have things in them that add to bone strength. Celery has silicon, adds to bone strength, okay? So what does the pomegranate have? What they say is that the pomegranate is like a woman's ovary. Now this is where it gets really interesting, okay? Now, an ovary, well, let me just put it this way. A fruit, you got to know this, people. We don't think, a fruit by definition is an ovary, okay? How can I be more plain? We're going to have a little biology science lesson now, okay? I'm going to try to keep it really biological, like second grade or, biology. Now, the ripened ovary is a fruit, okay? So that's why when you open up fruit, they're full of seeds. It's really an ovary. It's a housing. It's a place to house the eggs, the seeds, okay? So the ripened ovary together with the seeds form the flowers of a plant. That's fruiting, it's the fruiting plants and humans, we have in common, our reproductive organs are called ovaries. And the woman's ovary looks just like this pomegranate, okay? Now, they're very similar, and I'll just tell you a little secret. They say, one site says that eating pomegranates is like a natural hormone replacement therapy. So just Google that. I mean, that's it. If walnuts can help your brain, maybe eating pomegranates can help you transition here a little bit in life, okay? So Now, women, they say, have over 1 to 2 million eggs or follicles in their ovaries, okay? And some of these are just biology statistics, which are astounding. This is from the Nova show, which is a totally worldly TV show. Nova, great science show, but they're not pushing, believe me, they're not pushing a biblical agenda or worldview. They say that in 20 weeks, in the womb, an embryo, a fetus, female fetus has developed reproductive systems with 6 to 7 million eggs. I'm telling you, people, this stuff is deep. Why do you think that pomegranate, and I wish I did have a knife to slice it open, full of seeds, okay? Just chock full of seeds. And you eat the seeds, you don't eat the pulp in a pomegranate, okay? Most of the time in an egg, or in a fruit, you discard the seeds and you eat the flesh, you eat the pulp, but not in a pomegranate. So what happens here is that, and then the fertilized egg, and then by the time a woman is, by 12, she comes down to about 1 to 2 million eggs or ovaries, okay? Now, this is where I wanted to tell you, and last week I told you, this is the thing. Something happened in the garden. Something it's called the fall. Something happened, okay, to all these seeds. Okay, and we are all, see, this is why we all, I read in one of the texts, it's really kind of an interesting little statement. Zechariah, I think it was, made a comment. He said even like when he discovered that Mary was pregnant, and he obviously wasn't the dad, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? And he makes the comment, he goes, I didn't do the sin of Adam. Oh, how does it, I just wish I had it in front of me. He didn't sin at the similitude of Adam, so how was Eve pregnant? Okay, now this is a very interesting statement if you know the whole story, okay? And this is why now in trees, because it's a pomegranate tree, trees, they're fruit. We eat the fruit of tons of trees. We eat fig trees, palm trees, olive trees, apricot trees, apple trees, date trees. I mean, you name it. We just eat the fruit of trees, okay? Now, trees are an interesting thing. So I wanted to make my point. I hope I made it, that this is just nothing but an ovary. I'm telling you, it's kind of crazy, okay? All these seeds in here. And it's in a hard case. This is another thing about biology. Not all living plant keeps their ovaries encased in a hard thing. Many species of living things have their ovaries, their eggs just sort of all over, and a wind comes and just woo, blows it away, and there it goes down the merry road to cross-pollinate, to find its mate down there that way. These have a whole different way of reproducing. Now, this is what I want to say. This is pure biology. There are two ways that nature pretty much reproduces itself. It's through sexual or asexual reproduction. And this is right out of a Google site that's talking about biology at about a 4th, 5th, 6th grade level. Now, all right, so let me just read this to you. Living things use a lot of different strategies for producing their offspring, but most strategies fall neatly into the categories of either sexual or asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction generates offspring that are genetically identical to a single parent. In sexual reproduction, two parents contribute genetic information to produce unique offspring. Okay, so in other words, in a lot of plants and things, they have both male and female apparatus, so to speak, that will in itself. So it will reproduce itself. And it says here in another section, it's almost like a carbon copy. It's almost like cloning. It's genetically almost identical. Okay, that is okay. Let me go to this part now. Asexual is easier to break apart. Now, this is so interesting, people, because, and the reason I want to just stop and say right there, the reason I'm going into this deeper meat and understanding, because we are coming up on the time of the mark of the beast. And everyone is trying to unpack it. Well, I'll tell you what, a little secret. On one level, yes, there's going to be an economic component, you know, and there's going to be a governmental component. But I'll tell you what, the one that you're going to really have to watch out for, the real mark of the beast, is the genetic marker of the beast. That's the one that's going to damn you to hell. I didn't write the book. I'm just trying to unpack it for you in language and understanding for today's very sophisticated or so population. In asexual reproduction, it comes from the Greek language and means without sex, okay? It means, and sex means to cross. See, you have to cross. You have in sexual reproduction, you have to take two entities and put them together to make the offspring. In asexual, it can happen just within that one species. I hope I'm making that clear. Let me try. Thus, the term asexual means without crossing, which doesn't make sense. You understand? Is also defined as without crossing. Okay. See, I see. You see the DNA, this gets into a whole thing where, and this will really unlock the understanding of the two pillars, and why there was a palm tree in the middle of the pillars, or in the middle of the cherubim. This will unlock the whole understanding of the DNA and the whole thing with the two. You see it all the time in ancient literature, all the time, all the time, all the time. That whole symbol of the two snakes, or the two DNA strands, or the two whatever's going up, okay? And this, okay. So what I want to say, and this is where I think there's an understanding here of the cross. Why did he have to die on a cross? Which, and if you read something, we're not talking about this little cross. I mean, people, this is such watered down, totally watered down parabolic understanding. I'm sorry, even I'm wearing one tonight. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay? It's so watered down understanding of what we're talking about, all right, on the deepest level here. And we need to get up to speed. We can no longer be in kindergarten about this stuff, okay? We have got to grow up into Christ, okay? Now, asexual organisms make exact copies of themselves. Now, I want to, all right, and let me read my last sentence here. We already know that asexual means without crossing or only one parent. Sexual means to cross, okay? Sexual reproduction means that two parents combine parts of their genetic material. With sexual reproduction, there is usually a male and a female, and this is across the board to all plant life or animal life, okay? The male contributes a copy of half of his genetic material, and the female contributes a copy of half of her genetic material. The baby that is born is called the offspring. In a very basic way, offspring get half of their traits from each parent. Because of the way the male and female copy their own genetic material, and the way they are combined, each offspring is different. It is a little like rolling dice for each offspring. Some organisms that can reproduce sexually are, and this is the only one I put down, was the palm tree. Okay, now trees, in a fascinating study, some trees reproduce sexually and some trees reproduce asexually. Isn't that interesting in our whole bigger picture story of here, and that there were two trees in the garden, okay? Now, and I just want to say that this palm tree that was between the two cherubim who were over the mercy seat. Because the main thing here is, doesn't matter, God's got mercy. He is a God of mercy. Whosoever, I don't care what your genetics are or what you've been messing around with or what your family history is or whatever, His mercy endures forever. Oh, well, praise the Lord. Okay. So there is an understanding here that the temple, okay, we are triune beings. We are a body, a soul, and a spirit. This is all Hebraic understanding. Okay, you know, you might want to have a worldview where you just think you're just a, you know, a body organism and that's it. From dust you are, dust you return. Well, that's just half of the story or a third of the story. Judaism teaches that the temple is a microcosm of the Garden of Eden, okay? Getting back to the garden and where flowers are and all these different species. The thing is, a garden is a lot of times in Jewish parabolic typology, the garden of the soul. There was a great book out a couple years ago called The Shack, and he really got this revelation. He really ran with it, and he really he understood the analogy of the soul as a garden. If you just let it get overrun with weeds and thistles and thorns and all sorts of emotions and unforgiveness and all these, because this is part of the story for out of the heart, and the heart is a code word, a parabolic understanding for your DNA. Out of the heart, out of your DNA are the issues of life that you're going to have to deal with, a lot of this stuff. But that's not the whole story, because there is environment, and above that all there is choice. So, so the soul, I had a little quote here I wanted to read, because the soul is used in a way of parabolic. It's used of a literal garden. It's used the garden of the soul. And what initially what it really means is an enclosure, okay? All these seeds, which I told you from Esdras represents, all these souls are enclosed in this ovary, okay? Oh, maybe here it is, soul. Soul in Jeremiah 31:12 versus used as shrine in Isaiah 65:3, or as a parabolic for the human body as Song of Solomon. I mean, this is one thing. You really try reading the Song of Solomon. I mean, you'll make yourself nuts with its parabolic. You know, you think I'm making oh my gosh, read the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs they called, and you try to figure out the parabolic understanding what they're talking about. Oh my gosh, most of the rabbis wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. Okay, the basic meaning of garden, whether literal, symbolic, or spiritual, okay, is an enclosure, okay, where a seed can be planted to reproduce itself. Cultivated, okay, while the Garden of Eden is a literal garden, the Garden of God mentioned in Genesis is not that Garden of Eden, okay? One of the things that you really have to understand, Peggy, is the body, and this is what so much of the other literature gets into, which is really deep and understood. What is going on behind the veil? What are some of these, when you get into that, what are some of these principalities and these powers? And then what is this spiritual wickedness? What is this vine that got planted outside of the Father's will? They have so many parabolic ways of telling this story, okay? Satan got into the garden of God, or the human body, this body, soul, triune spirit. He brought death. Now, because one of the problems when you get into, this is why I said the whole thing to me rests on a genetic level, okay? And why the whole new birth is so important, this understanding, just let's get it out of its little Sunday school understanding. You need to, your physics right now, your DNA is coded for death. I mean, do I have to tell, I mean, come on, people, just go drive by your grave. We all get born, but we all die. There's no way out of here. The concept of a hybrid, okay, and this is what we're talking about, in offsprings, everything was to reproduce after its kind. 70 trees, 70 nations, we don't have a problem, okay? We're all a complete mix and mingle. All the sons of Noah, of Ham, Japheth, they're all mix and mingle today. But a hybrid is a whole different animal. And a hybrid is a deliberate mating of two different species. The definition of a hybrid is an offspring of two plants or animals of different species or different genus. And there's synonyms for this, I didn't make this up, is cross. To crossbreed, okay? The ancient, or let's say the archaic meaning of hybrid, it came from the word the sheep. You think that sheep and goats, but the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Hybrid, which means the son of outrageous contact. In these words, in this understanding, in hybrid, and in these tables of nations, is what I was talking about last week with Canaan and what he did. This whole little group here in the middle, I know I got to go. In the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Gigabites, the Hivites, the Aconites, the Sinonites, the hybrids. This is the whole story of Joshua. This is the whole story of David. This is the whole story. This is the story we're going to play again. These hybrids, this is coming at us front and center. The mark of the beast. This is where we're going. So we need to understand this from a biological, pure science, pure biology, okay? From what they put on the temple, what deep understanding they had, and what the parabolic answer is, which is a new birth. So with that, I have to end. I want you to know that I absolutely believe that Jesus Christ, Yahushua HaMashiach, is the only way, the way, the truth, and the life, and no man gets to the Father except through him. And it's just a simple faith and confession that he truly is Lord. So with that, good night. I will see you very soon again. And check this out on YouTube. So if you didn't catch it all, you could listen to it again. Thank you.